We're talking about grown men going to purchase a 16-year-old and the Democrats here not wanting to make it a felony.
Why won't a quorum of Democrats vote to make it a felony?
You're asking me to explain something I truly don't understand.
He served as the Rocklin City Council and as mayor in 2019. He started his career in the state legislature as a legislative director before transitioning to the private sector.
Joining us right now,
Assemblyman Joe Patterson.
It's a $1 billion project, plus it could be one of the most expensive buildings in the nation. And we don't have any clarity on when it's going to get done, anything like that. And so it's really a disappointment. There's no reason for it. I mean, these are state tax dollars. It's crazy.
Well, Assemblyman Joe Patterson, welcome to State of Gold.
Thanks for having me.
It's great to be with you in your office, in the annex, the beautiful annex.
Yep, billions of dollars, to houses here temporarily.
Billions of dollars at houses, which is a great segue to this issue of runaway spending, lack of transparency. You're particularly passionate about transparency and lack of transparency in government, in state government. Where did that core passion come from?
Well, it was really, it started in my local government days, actually. And why I ran for office in the first place was I thought our city council in the city that I live in wasn't really being transparent with the people that it represented. And so ultimately that led me to run for office, and I won. And it's been a foundational view. I mean, why do there need to be so many secrets in government, for example? I mean, outside of maybe national affairs or military, but when you're just voting on legislation and things like that, there's no reason to keep a bunch of secrets.
Indeed. So you've tried to gin up a movement to ban NDAs in the legislative process. Where's that at?
Yeah. Well, it's passed out of both policy committees, and then it'll next go to the appropriations committee. And I won't bore you with the details of that. But the only way it has a cost to the state is that if they expect legislators to be convicted for signing non-disclosure agreements. So I expect that to actually pass the assembly. In the Senate, we will be looking at doing amendments to make it more broad. I mean, still only apply to legislators because we've had to pare it back. It used to apply to lobbyists as well. But we want to make sure it's clear that basically any government decision that a legislator makes should be can't be under the guise of a non-disclosure agreement.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Couple months ago, I was in Sacramento for the GOP convention. I had a chance to attend an event and look down on the office building that you're all building, and that's gone from a few $100 million to reportedly over $1 billion. WTF? I mean, Joe, what's going on with that project?
Yeah.
And what does it say about the state of government, the state of affairs?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I can't tell you what's going on with it. I mean, there's non-disclosure agreements on it. I'm not entitled to know what's going on. So I didn't sign one, but people involved in the project have signed non-disclosure agreements. I have no idea what's going on. I have no idea how much it's going to cost. The only reason why I know anything about it is because the press reports what's going on. But my understanding is now it's a $9 billion project or nine figure, is that right? But it's a $1 billion project, plus it could be one of the most expensive buildings in the nation. And we don't have any clarity on when it's going to get done, anything like that. And so it's really a disappointment. There's no reason for it. I mean, these are state tax dollars. It's crazy.
It does boggle the mind, looking from the outside in, with commercial office vacancy at all-time highs in cities like Sacramento and other blue cities across the country. Some red state cities have the same issue. What was the original rationale to custom build an office building behind the Capitol, as opposed to utilizing cost-effective space nearby?
Yeah. Well, I was definitely in support of tearing that building down, the office spaces. I mean, they had been messed with so many times over the years because of former speakers. They'd tear down walls and give you a smaller office and all that. I mean, it really wasn't functional. But look, we have an office that we're in right now. This office is brand new. It's only a couple of years old. It works fine. It's functional. Sure, I got to walk across the street to the Capitol to vote on some things. That has not been a problem. I've been just fine and able to do that. I think spending billions of dollars or hundreds of millions of dollars. So I don't have to walk across the street it's crazy. The taxpayers don't deserve that kind of behavior.
It's insanity. So you'd be in favor of halting the current project and redirecting and finding, either staying in this annex or finding other space. What would you do?
Yeah, I mean, I have no issue staying in this office. I think this is just fine. It's functional. We have committee rooms here. So I think there's no reason to give us better offices connected to the Capitol. I don't even really know what purpose that would serve. The issue now is there's steel up right around the Capitol. So I don't know what they do if they were to halt the project. I mean, they could big time scale it back and maybe turn it into public meeting rooms or something. I don't really know, but what they're doing now just makes no sense. I mean, they're doing an underground parking garage. They're doing all sorts of crazy stuff that's totally unnecessary.
I gather. Well, as a guy who spent a lot of time in real estate, I can tell you that the project cost from here to finish is a lot more than from when it started to here. So there are a lot of things that could be done. But, you've been an outspoken, important voice on other transparency issues, whether it's Panera-gate. For those who don't know, somehow the Panera Bread retail locations in California got exempted from the $20 minimum wage. What are the other transparency-related issues that you think are the most important for California and for citizens?
Yeah. Well, a big one is the California Public Records Act, which essentially means that the public is entitled to government records. Well, the legislative branch is totally exempt. We have our Legislative Open Records Act, which is it's a total lie. There are no legislative open records. Now, the theory behind that is that the legislature is an independent branch of government and it should be able to have a deliberative process. But the fact is that the public isn't entitled to any records of anything that happens in the legislature. And to the extent that legislators are even signing NDAs, I mean, it's absolutely crazy. But, that's just one of many issues. I routinely ask state agencies in hearings to provide data to back up what they're doing. We have state contracts, and there'll be no bid contracts on various things. Pharmaceutical companies enter into contracts with the state, no bid. And so I'll ask for, well, who else tried to get this contract, and the state will not provide that information, not even to me, where we're spending, again, millions and millions and millions of dollars, and I'm unable to get that data. That's what happens when you have total unchecked party political power in the state, is they are accountable to nobody. And so we really have to fix that. If I can't get the data, imagine if you're practically anybody else in the state, you are definitely not going to get that data.
So what would you do? What would you change? What legislation would you want to get passed to force essentially sunshine, right? Be a sunshine flavor of law. But what would you do?
Well, I think any kind of state contractor, there really shouldn't be an exemption to publicly disclosing contracts that the state is involved in. I mean, the problem is you can say, hey, we should have a computer system where people can put in requests and then get the data from the state. The problem is every time the state does a computer contract, those cost billions of dollars. So it's really hard to say what the solution is. So right now I'm kind of looking at it at a piecemeal basis, and also looking at my job is if there's something out there using whatever power I have, which is very limited, to try to get that data to expose what's going on. And as you know, the more people learn about how government operates, the more dissatisfied they are with what's going on.
Yeah, well, the polls certainly show it.
Yeah,
it's certainly on a federal level. What do polls say about Californians? Newsom's at about a 44%, which shocks me. That 44% of the state think he's doing a good job. What does polling say about the legislature right now, and what citizens feel about how you're all doing? Obviously, we've got a Democratic-dominated system here, but what do citizens think right now?
They're polling, and I think it's in the 20s or something like that. Depends on which poll. And but then when you go out and you ask people, well, what do you think of your legislator? If they, first of all, even know who you are, those people typically poll kind of high. And so So that just makes it very difficult to have any systemic change in this state where people like their legislator, but not their legislature, right? Um, so, so that's just the bottom line issue with how people feel about us.
Gotcha. Let's talk about an issue that's really burning right now, and super important, which is the fentanyl epidemic. It's been a cornerstone of your work in Sacramento. Talk to us about the state of play of really what is just terrible policy and probably a disempowering of policing around this. But what is the state of play on fentanyl, and what do you want to see?
Yeah. Well, I think the state is unfortunately a contributor to the problem. I mean, we have safe injection sites and people can use their drugs safely and things like that. And look, I mean, you don't want to necessarily throw a person in prison forever who's addicted to drugs. I mean, you want to get them the help they need, right? But the fact that you can't criminalize the people who are peddling it. I actually had an opportunity to go look at what our military is in the kind of information they have in regards to the cartels operating within our state. I mean, it's hard to believe, but the cartels are operating in almost every major urban area in this state.
They're in the marijuana business, and they're indeed.
Exactly. But it goes beyond marijuana, you know, and the fact that we, again, this goes to national politics, but you know, we have an open border, maybe not so much anymore under Trump, but historically, we just allowed these things to flow through. And then all of a sudden, we have this problem in California, which refuses to criminalize it. And by the way, the state has said our local law enforcement can't work with the federal law enforcement on getting these guys out of here. So it's just a huge issue. I mean, essentially, California is open for business if you're a cartel member, and I think that that's unfortunate.
What would you do, and if there were legislation you could get passed, what would be the nature of it?
Well, I fortunately had a lot of success getting legislation signed in regards to fentanyl, mostly centered around treatment, although I did get one signed that it does deal with the criminal component of it. But I think the most important thing, first of all, there's two types of people that use fentanyl. One are the people who are poisoned by it, really have no idea that it's laced in whatever drug. And I think that is an education component. I mean, my kids already know you got to be careful if you take something that somebody else gives you, right? Because it could actually be laced with fentanyl.
Of course.
Now, they don't walk around.
Will tell you.
Exactly. But then there are the people who are addicted to it. And I think that is a little different. Again, I don't think you lock away, throw away those people's lives, but you got to get them help. And by the way, the help doesn't entail just giving them more of the drugs. And if you're selling this stuff, you deserve to go to prison for a very long time. Just last year, it was a fight to get anything under something like, if you could, unless you had enough fentanyl to kill 500,000 people, you would not get an enhanced criminal sentence. So that's how obscene this place is.
What is driving the opposition on the Democratic side? If you pulled a colleague aside and you're talking mano a mano and you're saying, hey, give me the real deal, Mr. Democrat, on what's driving opposition to more punitive sentences, empowering police further on this, working with the feds, what would it be?
Yeah. Well, if you talk with the average Democratic legislator here, my view is they're actually pretty normal in terms of how they would want to address this. I think most of them are open to criminalization. But when it comes through getting through the legislative process and the way the committees are stacked up against common sense, they don't get out of here. And there are all these, whenever you propose a piece of legislation to criminalize it, all these progressive groups come out of nowhere. I mean, they're well capitalized, they're well funded to argue against this. And I just have to say, one of those organizations, the Drug Policy Alliance, one of its main funders is George Soros, and he actually sat on their board. So it's not like this is some kind of conspiracy. It's very public. You can go look at it. But he is funding all the opposition to these policies here in California. It's hard to believe, but that's exactly what's going on.
But if you took that colleague aside, you said, hey, they're generally fair-minded people. They generally want to do the right thing, but there are pressures being exerted on them, whether it's Soros's organization or others. What is the argument they're making, either in committee or in private, about why they don't want to enhance sentences or other strategies to deter dealing, etc.? What are they saying to you?
They don't, because they never get a chance to vote on it in the first place. These bills die before they even get to the assembly floor. They die in the committees where the progressive members sit on as well, and they kill the legislation and it never sees the light of day. I believe if most of this legislation hit the assembly floor, I believe Republicans and Democrats would come together and move it forward.
Because they're not going to, they don't want to vote publicly against something that's common sense. But if it doesn't get to the floor, then you've got that to recover.
Correct.
Right. So what a shame. What a shame.
Yeah.
I want to take a quick time out and let all of our viewers and listeners know, if you enjoyed this show, please subscribe and follow us so you can access more great interviews like this one with Joe Patterson. Can we look ahead to 2026? Got a lot coming up. Every constitutional officer coming up for election. By my count, out of the 12 statewide electeds, including the Board of Equalization, there's one Republican elected statewide, which is unbelievable. What do you foresee for 2026 November, Joe?
Well, I'm always an optimist. It's hard to predict. I mean, I think what happens on the federal level really can dictate what happens on the state level. And there's so many questions about what's going to happen there. But I truthfully believe the average person knows that the quality of life in California, our taxes, things like that, the cost of living are worse here than any other state. And I think they're able to blame the government here. So I always have some optimism. In fact, in 2024, we lost congressional seats in California, right? Some of our Republican members, but we picked up seats in the legislature in two heavily strong Democratic areas. So I think that might be no different in 2026. I don't know what's going to happen with the state constitutional officers, but I believe if certain people on the Democratic side run for governor, I think a Republican could win that thing. So you just never really know. But at the end of the day, we need some opposition to the government here. We need some level of just different perspectives on how the government should be.
So you think that Kamala could scare people into common sense? Is that what you're saying? Because she's odds on going to run. I gather she's polling terribly nationally, which is no surprise. So the team that the government's still paying for, I think the VP has 6 months of a paid team after leaving office. So still polling, still working it. And I understand she's going to run. And so you're saying she could scare people into common sense and into some different choices.
Well, I think 2026 will be, an anniversary since one of Arnold Schwarzenegger's elections here in California. So I always think that there's hope that a person that's vibrant, that communicates well with people, that are more personable and understandable than whatever Harris is providing, I always look that there could be hope that somebody could get elected.
Yeah. Well, people, regular people tend to be common sense and tend to be smart. And I think that the last cycle showed that people voted for Republicans more than had they ever in recent memory on a presidential cycle. So I think you're probably right. You've got 4 kids?
4 kids, yeah.
I have 5.
Oh.
So we have 9 kids between us growing up in California. What do you hope for your kids? What do you tell your kids? I know that you talk to your kids about safety and being careful around substances, which I do too. I've got from 4-month-old to 20-year-old. So I've got a bigger span than you, I think. But what do you tell your kids about what's going on and how to be safe and how to have hope?
My kids are very aware of politics, and it's probably my fault. I don't really talk politics when I'm at home with them.
What are the ages?
My oldest is 12 and my youngest is 4. But my 12-year-old the other day started talking. We were driving by a gas station. And he's like, I don't understand why gas is so much more expensive in California. It's like $1.30 cheaper than it is or more expensive than it is on the East Coast.
Very self-aware.
I mean, I don't think I've ever talked to him about that, but he knows, he's heard it from somewhere. He's probably on YouTube. Yeah. Whatever it is, the message is getting around to my 12-year-old.
Amazing.
And at some point, he's going to be old enough to vote. And by the way, I got to say, my 2 older kids, 12 and 10, they remember schools being shut. Over time, they do place that blame on Governor Newsom. And I'm sure I did have something to do with that. By the way, that was before I was a legislator. But, they were really impacted by that very negatively. And so that's something they're not going to forget very easily. And so that's really influenced, I think, their positions on things.
Yeah, I love your 12-year-old quoting the price of gas. That's amazing. And you're right. I mean, our kids were terribly hurt. And kids who don't have stable households and kids who don't have a strong parental or mom and dad at home hurt even worse, don't have that support to do the homeschooling or the home Zooms. And it was really a disaster, really a crying shame. Anything that we missed we should talk about, or anything that's particularly you're passionate about right now that we should cover?
Gosh, I mean, by the time this airs, it'll
6
probably
weeks.
be, yeah, it'll probably be. But this whole 16 and 17-year-old, have you been following this stuff?
Very much.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that for a minute. So somehow Democrats in the legislature want to make a distinction between solicitation for sex, paid solicitation of 14 and 15-year-olds versus 16 and 17-year-olds. Joe, what the heck's going on?
Yeah.
And can you help us make sense of this?
But again, this is a situation where several Democrats voted with Republicans. I mean, the author of the bill to make it a felony to try to purchase a 16 or 17-year-old is a Democrat. Granted, a Republican tried it last year. So most normal people are on our side. But the way this is just indicative of how this system works, is that your government is unwilling to make that a felony if you're out there trying to buy a 16 or 17-year-old. And we're not talking about, if it's an accident, if you're an 18-year-old and a 17-year-old or something like that. We're talking about grown men going to purchase a 16-year-old and the Democrats here not wanting to make it a felony. But I think who cares about the individual policy area per se? I mean, it's really important to me as a father of 4 kids. But what's more important on this conversation is that is the way this system works here in the legislature, is they can't even find themselves to make that a felony, which we all know is wrong. And a person who does that should spend time in prison.
Can you help explain why? Why won't a quorum of Democrats vote to make it a felony? What's the explanation? That's common sense.
You're asking me to explain something I truly don't understand. I mean, it is something that we discussed. They mentioned this issue of an 18-year-old giving $20 to a 17-year-old.
The Scott Wiener.
Yeah, but the truth is that's never going to be charged as a felony. If anything, a DA is going to charge that with misdemeanor statutory rape, if even prosecuting it at all. So it's just inflammatory, and it just paints us all as being stupid when you actually believe that that's going to happen.
Yeah, certainly not a hill to die on for any politician. Can we finish with rapid fire? So this is your gut response or a newspaper headline.
Sure.
Okay. Number 1, you're king for a day or dictator for a day. Wink, wink. What's the single thing you do to make California better for all its citizens?
Broadly, I would really scale back the administrative state we have in California that slows down everything. Doge it. But specifically, I would really look at getting rid of CEQA when it comes to necessary infrastructure. That includes housing, that includes streets, that includes electrical infrastructure. And by the way, if the state is going to spend billions of dollars on high-speed rail, which I don't think it should waive CEQA to do that. But that is the most pressing need we have in California, in delivering the infrastructure we need, as we need more electricity and water and so on and so forth.
From your mouth, amen. Number 2, which California leader, past or present, do you respect most?
It's really hard to not put Ronald Reagan in that category. I mean, I think, when I look at Reagan, when I look at Schwarzenegger, I really love I don't agree with everything he put out there, or any politician, everything they put out there, but he took the job seriously, and he was very personable, and he had a bold vision, and that's what we need, not flying, day by day. But Ronald Reagan, when I go back and you just look at the the things he said and the speeches he made, how could you not be moved by some of his government philosophies? Again, maybe you don't agree with everything that he said, right? But it's pretty influential and pretty amazing to think that he came from this state, and by the way, came from Hollywood and went all the way up to be president of the U.S. That's pretty crazy.
Yep. An amazing story and an amazing wife. What do outsiders get wrong about California?
That's a good one. I think, interestingly enough, when I talk with people outside of California now, they almost always say that it, is a crap hole now. I mean, they think about the homeless.
They're reading the press.
And they read the press. And I think there's a lot of truth to those issues. I mean, there's homelessness everywhere, and there are needles that you find places and things like that. But it's still a pretty beautiful state, and it's not just because of the weather. I mean, we do have great companies out here, a lot of capital moving globally through California, some of the smartest people. I mean, when you look at institutions like Stanford and Berkeley and things like that, I mean, they are putting out some of the most intelligent research and products that humankind has ever seen. So it's still a very vibrant place. It might be losing its glimmer a little bit, but I think it can come back with the right leadership.
What gives you hope we can still fix the state?
Well, a lot, because I think I think the citizens are seeing that there are a lot of problems. I mean, you just talk to anybody who has to pay their utility bill and anybody who has to put...
I live in Palo Alto, believe me.
Exactly. So anybody who does those things knows how expensive it is. Try buying a house in Palo Alto even after you graduate from Stanford. I mean, it's impossible, right? So we all know what the problems are. And I think if I learned anything from 2024, it's that people are aware of it and they're ready to address it. And again, that's not really a Republican or Democrat perspective. A lot of my new Democrats colleagues that were elected, by the way, I've been very impressed with them kind of bucking whatever the party tells them to do. Look at Maggie Krell, who authored the legislation regarding the 16 and 17-year-olds. I mean, she did not take the speaker's deal to water it down, and that they took her name off of it because she was not willing to give up her convictions for what was best for the party. So that gives me a lot of hope that finally Democrats are getting tired of this stuff too.
And let's hope that she stays around. Finish this sentence. California is
promising. I don't know how you, we still have such a vibrant place. We get stuck in the slog of the government, but most people should not be thinking about the government. They should be thinking about their business, their family, all those sorts of things. And in some areas, it's really not working well, right? And the government's a contributor to that. But we have systems of success here. And I think we need to open that up and give everybody those opportunities. So I think there's a lot of promise here. It's just government needs to get out of the way.
Yeah. Amen to that. And that's a very Ronnie Reagan place to end, getting government out of the way.
Yeah, it is. When you look at our utility bills, for example, I'm the vice chair of the utilities committee. I did a bill to just have utilities put on their bill that they send out how much of their rates are actually because of government fees and mandates. And of course, that bill won't go anywhere. But the reason why we're paying 2-3 times more on utilities than any other state is because of policy decisions made in Sacramento. So you might think having a clean environment is important. I agree, it's very important. But that does come at a cost, and people should know what that cost is.
Right. Yeah, there's a whole, we did a great interview with Jennifer Hernandez, and if you've run into her, she's the leading attorney on CEQA with Holland and Knight. She's based in San Francisco, and she's a lawyer who is literally on every side of this issue. She represents defendants and plaintiffs, and she's a leading voice calling out the utter hypocrisy of the system of extortion that's been built around CEQA. And we've got the people, we've got the industry, we've got the natural beauty, we've got everything. We're suffocating underneath how many different layers of innovation retardant.
We didn't even get started just about how our policies don't line up. I mean, our housing policies in the state with housing elements and it forces sprawl to go out in the middle of nowhere instead of doing a cleaner environment, which is intensifying density in the urban cores.
Right.
And so it's like CEQA makes it hard to do the sprawl. The state still requires you to do the sprawl, so it jacks up the cost, creates more fire risk, all those sorts of things. So yeah, CEQA we got to get rid of. It's just weaponized.
I know that we kind of went beyond our close, but Joe Patterson, thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
You're a good man with an important voice. Really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for doing this.